Hello. This is Antje from Byte Shuffle. Thank you for always watching our videos. This time, I've put together a guide on how to navigate and sideboard against UR Delver when using the Painter archetype. Here is the deck list we will be using this time. Since I'm likely to get mana screwed, I'll mulligan. Since my mana base is unstable and my hand's colors are scattered, I'll put Veil of Summer on the bottom. I'll use Hand Disruption to scout ahead. I took out Ponder. There's a risk of Wasteland, but I can recover with Volcanic Island and a draw source, so I searched for Underground Sea. I'll search for a tutor. I stacked Infernal Tutor, Veil of Summer, and Misty Rainforest in that order, then drew a card. I'll use Brainstorm to filter my hand. I stacked Polluted Delta first, followed by Veil of Summer. I'll assess the pacing and positioning relative to my opponent. I took out Daze. Since my opponent didn't have many impactful cards left, the Veil of Summer I stacked on top is probably unnecessary now. I'll closely watch my opponent's actions and decide whether to draw Veil of Summer or shuffle it away. Since Veil of Summer is no longer needed, I'll shuffle it away. The Surveil effect leaves the card on top of the library. I'll search for Mana Acceleration. I stacked Bayou first, followed by Duress. I'm going all in. From here, I'll generate additional mana needed for the combo. I'll go through the Ad Nauseam route. As for when to stop with Ad Nauseam, with Beseech the Mirror, if you can generate 4 mana while building up Storm and have at least 1 permanent to pay the bargain cost, you can secure the win. I'll accelerate my mana while also building up Storm. With enough Storm built up, I'll cast Tendrils of Agony. Before sideboarding, I'd like to review the list we used. First, the conclusion. I will explain it step by step. Here are the cards from UR Delver that are relevant to ANT. First, there are graveyard hate cards like Grafdigger's Cage and Surgical Extraction. To counter the ability of Consign to Memory, which counters triggered abilities, I'll include the Painter package. For sideboarding, I'll remove the core cards mentioned in the deck guide video. Next, let's talk about Daze. The opponent uses Wasteland to disrupt my mana base. By combining that with Daze, they can make Daze function as a pseudo-force of will. If the opponent uses Daze effectively, it becomes much harder to win, so I'll counter this by ensuring my mana base is stable and well-developed. To achieve this, I'll include Forest and Carpet of Flowers. In exchange, I'll take out the less mana-efficient Lotus Petal. Next, since the opponent will likely bring in some number of Pyroblast, I'll reduce the number of Ponder in my deck. Next, Null Rod and Counterbalance. Along with Grafdigger's Cage and similar cards, I'll include Abrupt Decay to deal with them. For answers to permanents, it's best to have around 3 slots, including the Boseiju, who endures already in the main deck. Since UR Delver sometimes includes a single copy of Mystic Sanctuary, you need to be cautious when using Boseiju, who endures. Next, against Force of Will, Force of Negation, Daze, Consign to Memory, and Pyroblast, I'll use Duress, Thoughtseize, and Veil of Summer to counter them. Next, let's talk about Ad Nauseam. The opponent has threats like Delver of Secrets and Dragon's Rage Channeler, and uses spells like Lightning Bolt to quickly chip away at my life total. Since Ad Nauseam often becomes ineffective in this matchup, I'll side it out. This time, I covered how to approach situations where the opponent's sideboard plan includes cards like Null Rod and Disruptor Flute, which can disable the Painter package, but remain on the battlefield as continuous threats. If the opponent's hate cards are more focused on destruction, such as Abrade or Meltdown, instead of relying on the Painter package, It's better to go for the storm plan to secure the win in these situations. Before playing Game 3 in a tabletop match, checking how many cards your opponent has sideboard can help you adjust your strategy more effectively. Since I can start with an island and use draw sources to smooth out my hand, I'll keep this hand. Since I'm not playing a typical ANT deck, I'll completely ignore my opponent's graveyard hate cards. I'll search for a land. I stacked Veil of Summer, Duress, and Forest in that order, then drew a card. My opponent cast Ponder, chose not to shuffle, and drew a card. Since I have 2 copies of Duress and my opponent's hand seems strong, I'll scout ahead with hand disruption. I took out Daze. I'll search for a tutor. I couldn't find what I needed, so I shuffled my library. I'll search for a tutor. I stacked Duress first, followed by Painter's Servant. I'll use hand disruption to scout ahead. I took out Consign to Memory. I'll set Painter's Servant to black. The Surveil effect sends the card to the graveyard. I don't expect it to get removed, but I can give Painter's Servant hexproof with Veil of Summer just in case. I'll search for Grindstone. I stacked Polluted Delta first, followed by Duress. I'm going all in. From here, I'll lock things down with Veil of Summer. The Surveil effect sends the card to the graveyard. By responding to my opponent's spell Pierce with my own Dark Ritual, I effectively countered it. I'll search for Grindstone. Since the Painter package has hexproof, I'll go straight for the Painter combo. Lastly, I have an announcement. I'm posting the concepts behind the images used in my videos, as well as small flavor-inspired stories, in the YouTube community section. Additionally, I'm selling merch for the channel through the link in the description. If you're interested, be sure to check it out. Thank you for watching up to this point. I apologize for the many play mistakes. I hope to improve at MTG together with everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving it a thumbs up. See you next time. This is Antya.